The ceasefire is ending, but the real danger is only just beginning. Now let's get into what is actually happening, because the clock is ticking and the situation is moving faster than the official story can keep up with. The ceasefire deal that was signed in Pakistan around April 7th ends tomorrow night. After that, there is no deal. There is no plan. There is no diplomatic buffer between the current military standoff and whatever happens next. And based on everything we know about the state of the talks, the state of Iran's military readiness, and the state of American domestic politics right now, what happens next is not going to be peaceful. Let's start with the talks, because the gap between what Trump has been saying in public and what has actually been agreed is now so large that it has become a real credibility problem for the American side. Trump said publicly that Iran had agreed to give up all of its enriched uranium. Iran denied it the same day. Trump said that Iran had agreed to hand its nuclear material over to the United States. Iran denied that too, immediately and publicly. American intelligence analysts have recorded that Trump makes an average of 98 false or misleading statements per day. That figure comes from studies published in American media, not from foreign government critics. It comes from the domestic press of the very country Trump leads. And when you apply that level of factual unreliability to diplomatic claims about one of the most important negotiations in decades, the result is that nobody, including America's own allies, can say with confidence what has actually been agreed, what has been proposed, what has been rejected, and what the real state of the talks is. What we know for certain is this: the talks in Islamabad produced nothing solid. J.D. Vance spent 21 hours in the room and left without a deal. A framework was apparently discussed. Trump then publicly contradicted and walked back large parts of what his own negotiators had apparently been working toward. Iran's conditions for continuing talks remain clear and have not been met. An end to the naval blockade, an end to military threats, and respect for the 10-point framework that Trump himself accepted a week and a half ago before apparently deciding to rewrite it under Israeli pressure. Iran has also made clear that it will not take part in talks that are handled by Trump's family members rather than professional diplomats. That is not a complaint about procedure. It is a direct statement about whether the American side is negotiating in good faith or using the diplomatic process as a delay tactic while repositioning militarily. Given the pattern we have documented over the past several weeks, Iran's doubt on this point is not unreasonable. If you are not yet part of our community, subscribe to Front Report right now. This is the kind of analysis we provide every single day. The full picture, the documented contradictions, and the pattern that connects today's events to what was said and done last week. Now let's talk about what Iran has actually been doing during this ceasefire, because this is the detail that changes the entire military picture for what comes after tomorrow night's deadline. American intelligence reports leaked to the New York Times last week confirmed something that should be deeply uncomfortable for anyone who believed the ceasefire showed genuine Iranian military weakness. Iran still has between 40 and 50% of its ballistic missile supply, its launcher systems, and its drone arsenal intact and working. Think about what that means. After weeks of sustained American and Israeli strikes that were presented to the public as a serious blow to Iranian military capability, Iran still holds roughly half of its most deadly weapon systems. The strikes did damage, but they did not come close to the clear-cut degradation that the Pentagon's public statements suggested. And Iran has not been sitting still during the ceasefire period. The intelligence reports describe a major resupply operation that has been going on throughout the pause in fighting. China has been supplying cruise missiles. Russia has been providing targeting data and additional weapons. The warehouses and underground facilities that survived the initial strikes have been restocked. Trump publicly warned China not to supply Iran with cruise missiles. By the time he issued that warning, the missiles had already been delivered. The warning was not a deterrent. It was an admission that it had already happened. The underground part of Iran's military setup is also worth understanding in detail because it fundamentally limits what American air power can do no matter how many strikes are launched. Iran has spent decades digging facilities beneath the granite mountain ranges that cover large parts of its land. These are not simple bunkers or reinforced concrete shelters. They are complete underground cities, command centers, weapons storage facilities, and production infrastructure carved into solid granite at depths that American weapons cannot reliably reach. The American military does not know exactly where all of these facilities are. Even the ones they have found cannot be destroyed with conventional weapons. The geography of Iran is itself a defense system, and it is one that no amount of American military spending can neutralize from the air. This is the military reality that the ceasefire has given Iran the chance to strengthen. While American and Israeli officials were making public statements about Iranian weakness and the success of the strikes, Iran was using the pause to restock its above-ground weapons supply, secure its underground facilities, hold together its command and control systems, and prepare for whatever comes after the deadline ends. Iran learned this pattern from Israel and the United States themselves, who have historically used ceasefire periods to rearm and reposition. Iran applied the lesson carefully. Now, let's address one of the most telling contradictions in American policy that almost nobody in mainstream media is discussing with the directness it deserves. While Trump has been publicly threatening to destroy Iran for closing the Strait of Hormuz, while American forces have been carrying out strikes on Iranian infrastructure, while the public story frames this as a clash between American power and Iranian aggression, the Trump administration quietly extended its sanctions exemption on Russian oil through May 16th. That extension was confirmed by the Bernama news agency on April 18th and acknowledged by the Pentagon. Read that again carefully. Trump is at war with Iran, which is Russia's main military partner in this conflict. Russia is providing targeting intelligence to Iranian forces that is being used to strike American military assets, and Trump just gave Russia another month of relief from sanctions on its oil exports. The official explanation is that removing Russian oil sanctions would help lower American gas prices, but that explanation falls apart immediately when you note that Russia at the same time issued internal orders blocking oil sales to Western countries. Russia is not selling oil to the West whether American sanctions are in place or not. The sanctions exemption helps Russia without producing any real benefit for American consumers. It is, in plain terms, a gift to Vladimir Putin at the very moment when Putin's military support for Iran is directly contributing to American casualties in the Persian Gulf. The explanation that makes the most sense is the one that Trump's behavior has consistently pointed to throughout this entire conflict. He is genuinely afraid of Vladimir Putin, not diplomatically careful, not strategically calculating. Afraid, he will not take any action that Putin would find objectionable. He will not put pressure on Russia even when Russia is actively supporting the military force that is killing American personnel and destroying American military assets. The sanctions extension is the most recent and most obvious expression of that fear, and it creates a strategic incoherence in American policy that Iran and Russia are both taking full advantage of with complete awareness of what they are doing. What we are watching in terms of the overall American political and military situation is something that has not been seen since the Vietnam War, a president whose own generals are actively cutting him out of military decision-making because they do not trust his judgment, a chain of command that is broken at its highest levels, an institution that is being asked at the same time to fight a war it is losing and to protect the country from the decisions of the commander-in-chief it is supposed to serve. The comparisons to Vietnam are not shallow. During the final years of American involvement in Vietnam, there was a clear breakdown in the relationship between civilian political leadership and military command, with senior officers privately contradicting public assessments of the war's progress, with intelligence being filtered and distorted before it reached political decision makers, and with a growing institutional understanding that the war could not be won on the terms the political leadership insisted on framing it. What we are seeing now has similar structural characteristics, but compressed into a much shorter timeline and playing out in a much more public way because of the information environment we live in. Trump's breakdowns are now visible across every institutional relationship that a functioning American presidency depends on. His relationship with Congress is broken, with members of both parties having raised war powers violations. His relationship with the military establishment is broken, with generals reportedly shut out of the Situation Room after clashes over operational decisions. His relationship with NATO is broken, with European member states actively planning a command structure that leaves Washington out. His relationship with the Vatican is broken, with the Pope having publicly criticized his conduct. His relationship with China is hostile in ways that are producing direct military consequences in the Persian Gulf. His relationship with Russia is one of managed fear that is costing American credibility with every ally watching the dynamic. And his approval rating, according to figures being shared in American media, stands at 37%, with 63% disapproval driven largely by this war. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian made a public statement over the weekend that is worth thinking about because it cuts through the ideological framing that often hides what is actually happening. He noted that Israel publicly announces the names of leaders it plans to assassinate and then carries out those assassinations while the international community and the United Nations stay silent. That when Iran defends itself, it is called terrorism. But when Israel and the United States kill tens of thousands of civilians, the same institutions that would condemn Iran find nothing to say. That question of moral consistency, whatever one thinks of the Iranian government's own record, is one that a growing number of governments and populations around the world are asking and not finding satisfying answers to. The ceasefire ends tomorrow night. Iran has used every hour of it to rearm. The talks produced nothing. Trump is making 98 false statements per day and hoping the markets believe them. The generals are cutting out their own commander. Russia is being rewarded while arming Iran. And the deadline that was supposed to create pressure for a diplomatic solution has instead become a countdown toward the restart of fighting. And no one with clear judgment truly believes that either side is seriously trying to stop it. Here on Front Report, we will continue to follow every development every single day. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Share this video with everyone who needs to understand what is really happening as the deadline gets closer, while the official story continues to describe a situation that does not match the facts and evidence. Tomorrow night, the ceasefire will come to an end. Whatever happens next, we will be here. See you in the next video.